So welcome everybody to History International Film Festival Austria, this year's edition of 2024. We are here now with the people behind Cheenee. I don't know if I even pronounce it correctly, but we welcome you wholeheartedly, and we thank you very much for joining our festival, for submitting your film, and now for giving us some insights into your production and into who you are. So if you don't mind, guys, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your film.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting us to this interview and for screening our film to your festival. We're very excited. My name is Andreas Antonopoulos, and this is a collaboration project between me and the choreographer and dancer Deboleena. So this is a project that focuses on the history of Indian heritage in Trinidad and Tobago, which generally speaking, you can see it as a general history about Caribbean. So because it says a lot about this particular period of history in the area, and it's not really a typical documentary. It's we put it, we will, if we have to position somewhere, it will be, we'll position it around, experimental documentary or experimental visual ethnography, or we work across this area. Now, we started on working on this project for two main reasons. One of the main reasons was that we're very interested to tell the story that is not so much known, and show a different aspect of the Caribbean area to a vast audience. And the second reason is that it will be very interesting to experiment and work around across our interest, which has to do with film, has to do with dance, has to do with architecture. So this is not really a typical documentary. It's a historical documentary. It's 30 to 35% is dance, and the rest of it consists of landscapes, actuality, and some interviews of the participants. So I will pass it to Deboleena. She maybe has something more to talk about her work as a dancer and co-producer of the film.
Hello, good morning, all of you, and thank you so much. We are part of your film festival in Austria, and thank you also, Andreas. We are both our collaborator, and we both are working in the University of the West Indies. We are both a lecturer. Andreas, all of you knows, is a film person, and I am the behind the scene, is a dance person, the choreographer. This is very interesting project for us. Like we both have a common interest about the history, about the movement, about the architect. This film is very much historical about the diaspora Indian culture. In Trinidad and Tobago, every country, different countries have a different diaspora history. But in Trinidad and Tobago is a different diaspora history, and we looking those culture and history. What is 1847 or 57 years before they came in from this island, from India. And we are trying to do with experimental also. The movement is also lots of experimental but we have our aesthetic, our history, and the scene, what is in the Caribbean diaspora culture.
Thank you very much. So would you explain a little bit more why it is important for you, why it has been important for you to show dancing as a part, aside from architecture? Maybe we come to that later, but why was it important to show the dancing in a documentary that gives us an insight into the history of the land?
I feel the movement is very important with anything. Like without movement, we are not still images. Yeah, but we are doing movement, and movement is very important. I can give the between the how history is a history, and now what is now, then what is then, and what is now. These two different elements are there. And movement is very important. Why every time any of the activities we need movement, and without movement nothing be visualized. We are trying to do visualize. Is not like we are scratching, but scratching also have a painting also have a story, but we are visualized through the movement. And the dance is very important in Trinidad and Tobago. Why it is a very vibrant country in Trinidad. And the beat, those beat is very important. What is before and what is now, and that's why we are trying to follow that part. And follow the that history. Diaspora history is a fully diaspora history. And to make a one frame, like compose something to put it in that film, and to say the story about us.
Yeah. There were quite a lot of participants in your film. How are they connected to the production? Were the people that were just enthusiastic about the project, and so they did it in their free time, or were they professional dancers and professional, I don't know, artists?
If I say I'm not speaking about participate, Andreas will speak about the participate. I can discuss with the dancer who are in the dance, and they are all are professional. And that period when we make this film, that is the COVID period, and it is very tough. We have a lots of restriction in there, like we cannot make it so many people together separately, and this and that. Lots of, and the whole world know about this COVID period, what is happening with us. We and that time we try to I try to do connect with my dancer, and they and we manage our mutual understanding, the time and all those things. But we met lots of, why is a full of choreography, is not anything we explore or improvisation on that period, is not that. It is a pre-planned, is a pre-choreographed about the history. That's we need to time, but we get our time, and we manage both side. We manage our time to do our studio practice, and also our shooting time. And I can pass to Andreas. Andreas can say about the participate, how he manage.
Yes, the participants, well, we are not limited so much. I will say from from the lockdown, we managed to shoot participants in the period of 1 year across Trinidad, and we managed to get some information about the participants through across different kind of institutes from Trinidad. However, these archives were quite old, and they were linked with the first or second generation of people that came to Trinidad, mainly for India. However, and most of these people, they were not in life. However, their ancestors, they were very, their kids, their grandkids, they were very helpful, and they were very that help us a lot to tell the stories of their families, and so we managed to get a lot of information from there. I don't think we limit a lot. We manage across the year, and then we have a big waiting until we go to shoot the dance. About dance, I have to say that the dance is not really, we don't imitate, the traditional dances of Caribbean. We make a mix of what is here and our interpretation, mainly Deboleena School interpretation of movement. So you will find you will find in the movement a mix of traditional Indian, of Trinidadian Indian, which is something quite different, and also contemporary modern movement. So it's a mix of everything. And because our intention is to could narrate story through movement. So way for some parts, we convert because there is no voiceover outside of the participants. There is no voiceover to explain anything. We don't want to impose any ideas to the audiences from any kind of perspective. So we allow the participants to talk the stories, and then it's the image mainly and the movement that talks. So we're hoping that we get a lot of we may create some kind of visual communication with the audience through the movement. So something else that possibly you're interesting about this film is the music. The soundtrack of the film was composed in India by the bassist Das, mainly tabla player, but he also worked with us. We are now the second collaboration. He's quite permanent collaboration of us. The soundtrack was composed and recorded in Pondicherry in India, and it was used traditional instruments. However, we didn't really interesting just again to imitate something folk. We encourage, the bassist does to encourage him to experiment and to bring, some maybe elements from jazz or minimal music and mix them all together. Also, we recorded some instruments from Trinidad and sent them to him. So it's a combination of different things. So we're just exploring something new. So it's not really about to just represent what is outside there. As makers, it's mainly our of course priority is historically to be accurate with everything that is depicted and everything is narrated in the film. However, outside of that, we are trying to experiment and to create new visual and audio forms. Also, something very interesting I would suggest for the film is some recordings we have from some local bands, which are mainly we record them in rituals. One was in a temple and one was in a yard, which I think, they are very, very interesting from music perspective because it's very interesting world music, which is difficult to find because there are no recordings.
Okay.
I have a bit of a technical questions. What was your thought process behind choosing the visual style, Andreas, not showing the interview participants directly talking, but more of a voiceover and them being more in a photographical kind of portrait when you show those those people?
Okay, before I will answer that by mainly state my influence on film, because from this film I will have a lot of inspiration from several areas, from dance, from still photography, from architecture. However, when I'm looking to other films, I'm not looking to documentaries. I'm looking to modern European cinema from 60s to until today. So mainly I will look to, to Antonioni, to Haneke, to Roy Anderson, this kind of filmmakers. And I will take, in a way, these ideas and the styles of fiction filmmaking and I will convert documentary. Of course, there are a lot of people that work with a similar way in documentaries, like Sandal Ackerman or Agnes Varda and all these filmmakers. However, as a documentary, because I started working recently in documentaries, and that was my first documentary was experimental completely archival project, and then I will say It's my first feature documentary I ever made. So I mainly you will find more similarities with the tradition of European cinema, world cinema, and less with the traditional documentary, with the conventions of documentary as we know it. And the reason mainly I work with, I avoided talking heads is the relations I would like to have with the audience. So I wouldn't really like to identify with the audience. I would like, just to hear the stories. So which is mainly the idea behind of objectivity, of cinema objectivity, that all these kind of European filmmakers were worked from 60s until today in Europe, and they have their roots back to the theater of Brecht. So I have all these ideas on my mind, and always try to find techniques, always to in a way have a dialogue with the audience, but not really grab them emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them how to think, and not to use music with, emphasize some areas. We are both interesting as a makers in, in experimentation, exploration of the audiovisual form.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
How did you originally come across the subject?
So the subject, we discussed a couple of projects before we conclude about that as a subject. However, we're interested in this kind of subject for main reason because it has a rich culture and there is a lot of information to get. Also, there is a lot of things happening in Trinidad that relates to the particular heritage, a lot of music, a lot of rituals, a lot of ideas. And what is quite interesting is, that is not the original as it came from Trinidad. It's the transformation of it of something new through the decades in Caribbean area. So we are I would suggest that, we have a subject, but I would say primary, secondary subject, no, it's about the body and its flexibility to be adapted to different kinds of environments and the transformation. So I was very interested in this subject, and I use this story to explore this area. So I was always find interesting because, I'm not from here, I'm a foreigner, I came here for work, so I see it with both of us foreigners, so we see it with quite, different way. So very excited with all of these things happening and then rich history, and also we're very interesting to break the traditional stereotypical ideas that people think about Caribbean, that is mainly about beach, and cocktails and all this kind of stuff. Of course, this is not true. There is a lot of tourism, but this is not the history of the country, and possibly this is not what you. This is not what you focus when you are exploring the history and culture of Trinidad and Tobago and general Caribbean.
How did the population of the whole area receive the film? I guess you've already published it in a way or screened it. Where people did they connect with it? Do they identify with the story and the history you are showing us?
Deboleena, do you want to answer this?
Yeah, it's okay. This is very what we did this documentary is it is the first time somebody did like about something in documentary in this diaspora culture. They what Andreas mentioned, like is a beach and nice green water or blue water. It is only the one side. I can say this is just for tourists, but the culture, and I can say Indian population here, 42% is an Indian population.
Yep.
And very influence Indian culture. But that culture, it is very you know, from one place to another place when it is travel, and then travel make changes, and that is changes the culture. For me, I feel, yeah, it is not this, it is that, like is like this type of way. And then I say it is a very interesting those culture, even I am also foreigner. I came here in Trinidad. For me also it is very new, and what I knows, we knows what is culture and what is here is two different things. Your questions is what I go with it. Yes, it is very, very we not published anything any like that. We Andreas is giving this film to internationally way to submit his film, and then we are going here and there in abroad mostly. And in Trinidad we don't do like that. Why? We only screening inside our University of the West Indies, while lots of people wants to see that part. But we are very protective in that way. Why this time this film is going to screening other places. That's why we are not like to just show our film and those. For now, and even we both are in the same page. We want to screening as much as, and that is very very history. I don't like, I don't we want history make a, give an example in other place to know about the culture in Tobago. That's why I can say in that way the response is always, I say yes, response is very good. Why? All over the world our film is going to screening. And even this time in India, I do not believe India, they like to screening our film. They have a cinema in World International Film Festival in India. They screen same film after you maybe their time. Um, that's why we like to be put this film in the different way. Is not like social media thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is very rich culture, and that rich culture is produced by rich way. What I believe, we believe.
Okay, so there was a screening in Trinidad and Tobago in the University of West Indies, and it was perceived well. A lot of people they were not familiar with this information because you know, as generation pass, people they're interested less and less. I mean, it makes sense that has to do with all generations. They are looking at their own identity outside of the history of the country. So some people, they will say, okay, that was very interesting. I have no idea about all this kind of stuff. So from asking from this perspective, it was perceived well. The other thing is that I was very happy about it is that our experimentation worked for big audiences, so it's not for a limited audience. So people that we screened the film theater in the university, there were a lot of people came. I think the majority of them they managed to follow them. We have only very very few exceptions that people said, okay, we cannot follow it because it's not really what we have used to in the as documentary. There was these occasions, but they're very very small percentage.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's a rather newish topic. If you see documentaries internationally, and what they are mostly focused about, especially from the big companies that producing and big broadcasting stations here. So I think it's very, very important that documentaries like yours find their way to the international public, to the audience out there that is interested in other cultures and other history, and in combination, of course. And I think it's very important that you found a special way to work with the public where you filmed, and to present it in a special way, and not just the ordinary, let's say, BBC style that we're used to see in YouTube and television these days. So I congratulate you very much for your film.
Thank you
And
very much.
I thank you very much for submitting it to our festival. Actually, you were the first submission this year, the number one. Now then we are over like 100 films that's submitted, and we're very glad to have you on board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.